He's only at home when he can't feel the sand beneath his feet, when he can't hear a distant roar arising from the deep, when he can watch the sailing ships and feel the ocean's breeze. He knows of no other place he feels so at ease. To this land his soul is wed. He's a Sandgrounder, born and bred. At the end of a long, hard-working day, you can see him make his way along the fisherman's path and down the old causeway. The wind colours his cheeks and blows through his hair, carries away his fears, his worries and his cares. He opens up his arms to the wind and the sea, encircled in their dance of life, so joyful and so free. To this land his soul is wed. He's a Sandgrounder, born and bred.
I'm one of those people that ever since I was little I've been walked down on the beach and through the woods, and even to this day, retired as I am now, I walk more or less daily on the beach and through the dunes. So yes, it's very much in my heart and soul, this area.
On this crisp February morning, I'm delighted to be perched on the edge of a tall sand dune on the Formby coastline. Formby is partway between Southport and Liverpool on the northwest coast, and I've got a stunning 360-degree view from the top of the dune. Behind me is a very windswept pine wood through which I've emerged with my local guide, singer and songwriter Stephen Gerrard, who was born and grew up in Formby. Steve, being from down south, the word Sandgrounder doesn't mean much to me. Could you explain what it refers to?
If you look at the history books, they do mention that to be a true Sandgrounder, you have to be born between the Alt River, which is Hightown to the south of Formby, and the Nelson River, Hesketh Bank, which is well to the north of Formby, past Southport. And if you've been born on the in the coastal area, all along that stretch, and your family go back for 2 or 3 generations, then you are entitled to have the title of a Sandgrounder.
I've read that being a Sandgrounder means that you're born with sand between your toes. Would you agree with that?
I think there's something in that. For my own opinion is that there are an awful lot of people who may claim the title Sandgrounder and may never ever come down onto the beach here or walk the dunes or the woods and in almost all their lifetime. But there are other people who come down here almost daily to walk, and I always see them as being more true Sandgrounders, because they show that their love and appreciation of the area much more than a lot of local folk do. So again, Sandgrounder, yes, I think it can be people who have, as you say, the sand in between their toes.
And how far back does your family history go in this area?
Well, mine only goes back as far as I was born here myself, but my mother came from Liverpool and my father came from the Bolton area, and they met and married here and set up home, so I was born here. So I would regard myself, if you like, as a new Sandgrounder, because I don't go back generations. So I'm not a true Sandgrounder, I'm a new Sandgrounder.
But you've certainly done a lot of research about the area, and the stories that you tell go back many generations. I'm looking forward to you telling us more about some of the characters that make up this coastline.
Seagulls sail upon the wind with the autumn tides. White clouds drift slowly across the big open skies. From the marshland in the north to the distant Lakeland hills. He will watch the great migrations come and go with the winter chill. Always captivated by the wonders he sees, he knows there is no other place he would rather be. To this land his soul is wed. He's a Sandgrounder, born and bred. The dalesman has the hills and streams, a wealthy man is he. A Highlander his mountains in all their majesty. The Sandgrounders treasure like a precious pearl is that wonderful feeling he's standing right on the edge of the world. The sand is in his blood and it runs through his veins. Wherever he may wander, he always will remain. To this land his soul is wed. He's a Sandgrounder, born and bred. To this land his soul is wed. He's a Sandgrounder, born and bred. He's a Sandgrounder, born and bred.
You reference this area being the edge of the world in Sandgrounder, and that really makes a lot of sense now that I'm here seeing it, because the landscape is quite wild. The sand dunes rise up and then seem to fall away into nothing on the beach there. And these pine trees, they look like they've been swept by the wind over centuries.
Of course, there's been a lot of erosion on this particular part of the coast. So you can come down here and guarantee after the spring tides that we're going to lose, sometimes several metres, sometimes just 3 or 4, depending on what year.
Your first album is called Gypsy Wood, and I particularly like the song of the same name, which describes a whole wood having disappeared, tree by tree.
Yes, actually, from where we're standing now on the dunes, if we look to the left of us, you can actually see where Gypsy Wood once was. My father actually photographed Gypsy Wood because he was an artist and a painter, and he photographed Gypsy Wood for the drawings he was going to do, and you can see on the photographs it disappearing into the sea, tree by tree by tree, over the years.
I knew a special place called Gypsy Wood. I walked her paths as often as I could. From when I was young to when I grew old, I loved her seasons, I watched them unfold. Now Gypsy Wood stood close to the sea, and every high tide rose dangerously. Time went by, nothing could be done. Sea came in, took the trees, took them one by one. Now there's just a memory of old Gypsy Wood. birds once sang in the branches high above. The robin and wren, snow-white turtle doves. I woke one summer there with my very first love.
So from where we're standing, we can definitely see the negative effects of the elements on this part of the coastline, where they've eroded away a whole wood, as you described in that song that we've just listened to. But just down there, you've told me, we can actually see some evidence of an archaeological discovery that's been made due to the erosion of the sand.
Yes, and a number of years ago there's a discovery made by a chap called Gordon Roberts that there were actually some ancient footprints uncovered by the tides, which dated back between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago. So there would be sort of Stone Age man, if you like, footprints of Stone Age man, and they found prints of men, women, children and various animals that were lived in this area, this very area at that time, which is a fantastic find.
And your song, Stone Age Man, beautifully describes an encounter that you had with the man who left those very footprints.
Well, I couldn't resist when I came down here actually standing in one of the footprints. It just seemed to be, I know it's a strange thing to do, but I stood in the footprint and my mind sort of went into a dream really of what it must have been like for him to be here, what the scenery would have looked like in those times, and what life would have been like for him. And I also had this strange feeling, I wonder what he'd have thought about the life that I was leading. I wonder if he'd have been able to see into my world and I was able to see in his. Would we actually want to exchange worlds? Would he have preferred my world? Would I have preferred his? And that's what the song questions.
As the vision grew stronger and time just disappeared, the story of our different lives suddenly was clear. I saw into his world as he looked into mine, both of us amazed by what we did find. I had to make my way down to the sand to stand in the footprint of the Stone Age man. Suddenly he spoke in a manner most strange, saying my world for yours I would never exchange. I am one with the earth and one with the sky. For all your wealth and progress, this treasure you can't buy. He smiled, turned around and slowly walked away. From the edge of the forest he bid farewell to me. I had to make my way down to the sands to stand in the footprint of the Stone Age man.
So here we are further south along the shore, having stopped at the site where Bill Tasker, a hermit, set up home after returning from the First World War.
That's right. Bill Tasker lived in the sand dune just close to where we're standing here, and it was said that he did fight in the First World War. Nobody's absolutely sure, but when he came out, possibly shell shock, we don't know. But he lived on the local moss for a while, on the farms, and then came to where onto the shore here and built himself a cabin in the dunes, built of driftwood mainly. Most people knew Bill as a man that they would see when they came down here, walking along the water's edge with a group of stray dogs which he had, probably 9, 10, 11 dogs, and a couple of stray cats as well. And he'd walk along the water's edge carrying an old sack in which he filled with bits of coal and wood for his fire. And you could actually come down here and visit him, which we did as children, and he would engage in conversation and was a very pleasant and nice man to talk to. So he lived in his little wooden hut down here all the way till he died in the 1960s.
It's interesting that he, like the Stone Age man, chose to reject the wealth and progress of the 20th century in favour of living a simple way of life, of living in harmony with nature. I particularly loved the line in your song where you say he was combing the sands for remnants of another world, a world that he left behind. Can you tell me a little bit more about that world?
Well, I imagine that the world he was leaving behind was the one which a lot of us want to, when we come down here, want to leave behind, and he left it behind for good. That was the material world, and the world, you know, of people, which is a very difficult one, stressful one to live in. And with him coming out of the wars or whatever experience he'd had in life, he'd obviously had enough and decided just to lead a reclusive life, which, you know, I think a lot of us are full of admiration for.
Bill Tasker was a hermit who lived on Formby sands in a broken down cabin hidden in the dunes. He spent his days beach combing for whatever he could find, remnants from another world, the one he left behind. No one knew exactly why he chose this way of life. A soldier from the Great War, he'd seen a lot of strife. Some say there were scars from the battle's endless noise. Broken and downhearted, he followed his inner voice. He was a quiet and solitary man, his footprints fading in the sand. The western winds and ever-changing skies shone in his eyes. He walked the lonely shore each day, carrying an old grey sack, with a tribe of weary stray dogs and a couple of scrawny cats. I watched him from a distance as he followed in his stride, as he filled his sack with bits of coal left by the tide. And in his tiny cabin, warmed by an old wood stove, the works of Keats and Shelley, a Bible and an old chessboard. On a bed of moss lay a bird with a broken wing. It was his way to be a friend to the smallest of living things. He was a quiet and solitary man, his footprints fading in the sand. The western winds and ever-changing skies shone in his eyes. Years they slowly took their toll. Bill was getting old. He was found by two fishermen, hungry and cold. They sent for Dr. Diamond, but all was in vain, and he left for his spiritual home, as poor as he came. Those who knew him smile and say they see him to this day, as he walks along the shoreline with his canine company. Seabirds follow him so close they could almost touch this man who spoke so little and somehow said so much. He was a quiet and solitary man, his footprints fading in the sand. The western winds and ever-changing skies shone in his eyes.
So we're now up in the pine woods that also houses the Red Squirrel Reserve here at Freshfield. And Steve, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your teaching years when you used to teach children with special needs.
I worked in Liverpool for about 26 years all in all, mainly in the special school sector. And amazingly, a lot of the children that we came into contact with hadn't really been much out of the city environment. So I used to think it really important that we brought them out here to places like Formby and Freshfield to come and see the natural environment and to experience it firsthand. So I remember actually coming down to this little area where we're standing now through the woodlands and having a party of school children with me, and suddenly feeling one young man tugging on my arm, called Gareth. I remember as we came to the edge of the wood and he saw the sheep in the field and the lovely blue skies, he just said to me, "Sir, is this heaven?" And I was quite stumped by this lovely thing for him to say. And I just said, "Well, it looks very heavenly, doesn't it?" And you could see by his face that how in awe he was of what he was seeing and how beautiful it was to him, a new experience entirely. And he just said, "I would like to stay here forever."
Look at the blue sky, look at the trees, see all the sheep in the fields. Julie, is this heaven? I'd like to stay here forever. I'd like to be like the farmer in his field, watching over the sheep, looking out to sea. How good would that be? White clouds sailing by, seabirds flying high. Julie, is this heaven? 'Cause I'd like to stay here forever. I'm dreaming a dream, Julie, that I'm a ranger man, building a wooden house here on the sand, for you and me. Would you live with me? Julie, I'm not going back to town. Too many taxis and cars, people rushing around. The kids on our street all laugh at me and just want to pick a fight. They say I'm a clown and my head's not right. They say I'm a clown and my head's not right. Look at the sand dunes, look at the sea. I'm going in the sea up to my knees. Come on, Julie, I'll race you down to the sea. In the sand she wrote, "Who are you and what is your dream? What do you want to be?" In the sand he wrote, "Hello, it's Gareth, and I just want to be a person who's happy just a person who's happy, and he danced around, round and around, and he danced around, round and around, and he danced around, round and around, and he danced around.
It's testimony again to the positive impact that spending time in nature can have on people of all ages. You know, it refers back to Sandgrounder when you talked about how at ease and comfortable people feel in this environment. Very unlike perhaps what people feel under the pressures of a modern city life and the oppression of the noises of the cars, the rush.
Yes. I think for children as well as adults, this all helps us to reconnect with who we really are, back with nature, back with the quiet and the peace, things which, you know, city children don't get.
Thank you for this time of freedom to wander where I will, across the dunes, through the woodlands so fair, in the evening quiet and still. Thank you for the copper beech and chestnut trees, with their branches reaching up so high, forming an archway above my head, like a great cathedral of light. I leave behind the working man in his quest to gather and acquire, and open the door on a different world that fills my senses and desire. Thank you for the rain that softly falls, for the Juneland birds that sweetly call, for the field fair, the gold crest and the skylark, and the harsh core of the lone jackdaw. Thank you for the purple jubilees, for the harebells and the strawberry clover, for the fields where evening primrose shine, so golden when day's over. I have all I need right here, in this splendor everywhere I see. There is nothing outside of thee, it's all so bountiful and free. Thank you for the gentle wind that blows across the water-filled slack, where the moon sleeps sound in the marshes, guarded by the sentry crows in black. Thank you for the wild willow trees, broken ravages of time, like old men gnarled and battered by life, to their suffering now resign. Am I much more than the wind and the trees, and the singing birds or the dancing leaves? Am I much more than the clouds passing, the waves are crashing far along the shore? May I give thanks forevermore.
For more information on Stephen's music, you can visit stephengerrard.com. That's STEPHENGERRARD.com.